All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are ready and energized because I have an Energizer Bunny here with me today. My friend, somebody very dear to me in my circle, Jen Bugajsky. Oh, Bugajsky. I did it.
You
I did it. I psyched myself out because I'm like, got it. Hey, Jen, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Trisha.
Oh, I love it. And I love all of your work. And I can't wait for us to just dive right into this conversation so everybody else can get little tidbits and tastes. And so anyway, um, and you guys will see what I'm talking about as we get into the conversation. For those of you who know me, you'll see why I really gravitate to Jen's work and her message and her mission and her purpose. So anyway, Jen, let's start out with some of the basics. What does true leadership presence mean to you? And how does it differ from the traditional methods people usually rely on to boost confidence?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I really see leadership presence as owning all of you, showing up with full authenticity and confidence in who you are. It's not necessarily about what you do. I think there's a lot of things that teach skill sets on how to build a certain skill and be more confident. But presence and leadership is about loving all of you, every piece of you, not just saying, I accept myself, but loving yourself in mind, body, and soul.
Wow. I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree anymore. Like that is just beautiful. So you talk about cultivating genuine self-love and connection as the key to leadership's presence. Why do you believe, how do I want to say this? Why do you believe these elements are so critical in commanding respect and attracting success?
Yeah, I believe that one of the things that women struggle with today is we don't like how we look. We don't like our bodies. I don't know any woman out there that I've met who hasn't said, my boobs are too big, my butt's too big. I don't like my muffin top. And the way that we think and feel about our bodies impacts how we show up in every aspect of our lives. And I feel like people try to put that to the side and say that it's not important, that we just need to focus on mindset. And I like to say it's a combination of both. But women are so shamed of their female body. Sometimes we can't even say certain body parts. I laugh. I was at a retreat this past weekend, and there were certain body parts that were referred to as the danger zone. Like people didn't want to say certain body part names. And when they're like Brene Brown has a quote that says, um, where there are no words, there is shame. And if we as women feel shame around our body, we are not showing up and present in our authentic selves.
I I feel that so much. And it is, we do a lot of that work in my practice, or at least those that come and need and or want to do that work. I myself have struggled, and I'm not quiet about it, with body image and dysmorphia and things like that. But it's true and very accurate, that if we're not happy with where we are in our size, shape, clothes, whatever, we're going to show up differently. And I think, doing that work around when we get dressed in the morning, getting dressed for how we want to experience living. And that means, like, if you're going to put something on and it's going to be super uncomfortable, it's too tight or it's oversized or whatever it is, if it doesn't make you feel like, oh, awesome, then don't wear it. Right? Pick something else, pick
Right.
something else. And I just think it really, it fuels this next big problem that, I know a lot of leaders, struggle with, or, entrepreneurs, or, just even, regular everyday people, but, is that imposter syndrome and constantly feeling like they need to fix something about themselves, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So is it that outer shell, or is it my, intellectual capabilities, or is it, something else? So, I think it's largely present, especially in the female, you know, um, I don't know, I guess community will say, rather than the males. But what I know for sure is that the men are just quieter about it. So men, for you guys listening, I see you, right? Like, but so talk to me about how your approach, because I love it, and I can't speak to it eloquently. How does your approach help leaders stop seeing themselves as a problem to fix?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing, as with anything, as we need to make a decision that we want to see it differently, that we're open to another way. I like to say that the approach that I bring to the table might be a little different than what you might see, especially like in corporate America. But really focusing on the power of pleasure, the power of play, of really connecting physically with the body will allow you to open up to connect with ourselves. I think it was even just a recent Gallup poll this past year said that more than 65% of employees are disconnected and disengaged in the workplace. And it doesn't matter if you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur. If you feel disconnected, there is shame around yourself underneath it. And I think that a lot of times people don't want to talk about the body image component of it. But at the end of the day, for all of us women, right? Like we were made in women's bodies. And for years, we have tried to be like men, to compete with men, to have the same rights as men, etc. That's a whole other podcast topic we could talk about. But I think in this attempt to do that, we have lost sight of what it means to be a woman, to be and live in the feminine body, to accept, love, and appreciate, to adore the feminine body. And when you ignore those things and you put them to the side, we end up acting like men and focusing on crossing things off our to-do lists as opposed to really embracing our bodies and our femininity.
I think that embracing our femininity is something that people, and I don't know, maybe you've seen this, but I feel like, as that most women try to pull away from that,
Yeah.
because they what they hear, the way they perceive the messages from, say, different industries, male dominant areas, or just from their parents. Let's be real, because depending upon how old you are is how old your parents were and what position women were in, right?
Yeah.
So we feel like we have to quiet, and I'll use quiet rather than, another word, our femininity, because they might be afraid they're going to make us cry, or we might cry, or, we might get offended. And so we feel like we have to, and I hear people say this all the time. I'm more like a guy than I am a girl, right? Like, they want to be perceived as somebody that's, more masculine. And the way I look at that is somebody that operates, more primarily from their logical, rational mind
Sure.
versus their emotional mind. And that's cool, but why do that when we can merge the two together and allow something greater to emerge? Right? Like that great
Sure.
space of insight, intuition, when we merge the two. So, I think that is just such an interesting thing that you bring up about, people wanting to pull away from, that femininity instead of show up with it.
Yeah, well, I think we've been taught to focus on being smart and to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost kind of like you had to choose between being smart or being beautiful.
Yep.
And that's just not how it has to be. But most of us chose, let's go the smart route. And I don't need that beauty stuff. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I shouldn't say I didn't care. I hid behind it. I really wanted the clothes and the makeup and all of that. But because I didn't have the money or I was told it was wrong, I didn't. I wasn't the woman that had the hair, the nails, the makeup, the shoes, the purses, the fancy, luxurious, you name it. And I mean, I secretly wanted it, but yet just buried it because, well, first of all, my parents said it's not important, right? Like you need to be smart, not beautiful. So to focus on that.
Mm,
Oh, and by the way, you don't need to spend money on that either. I think that's another thing for women that why spend money on beauty, on clothes, on you name it. I mean, I do ballroom dancing and people look at me and they're like, how much money did you spend on that dress? And I'm like, who cares?
right.
Like, I love it. When I first bought my first ballroom gown, I remember trying it on and first looking at the price and going, oh my God, seriously, like I can't afford this. Like, why on God's green earth would I buy a dress that was multiple thousands of dollars, right? But I remember I looked down on the right side and I saw a slit. And
Mm,
I was like, ooh, that's really sexy. I'm like, I want that. I want that for me. And I said yes. And it was probably one of I'll say the most largest purchase I made for me, right? I'm not talking about a car or a house or education,
yeah.
but like to spend $2,500 on a dress that I might only wear a few times was so liberating. But it came from true desire. It wasn't that I saw someone else and I wanted what they had just because they had it. It was this internal sense of pleasure and desire that was mine. And I think that we have been taught to shove that down. We're not supposed to desire. We're not supposed to want pleasure for the sake of pleasure. I mean, I laugh because I remember when my kids were younger, I only bought them educational toys. I was like, why would I buy you the toy that was just for fun? You need to learn something from the toy.
Yeah.
And And I think so many of us are brought up that way. We forget that play and pleasure is where our creativity, where our imagination, where our aliveness actually comes from.
Right?
But we've suppressed it or been told it's bad, wrong, dirty, shameful. Don't spend money on that. You shouldn't do that. Focus on this stuff here. And I have found that when I say yes to pleasure, when I say yes to desire, that's when things unfold for me. And I think in today's society, we focus so much on the pain. And I'm not saying we don't grow through pain. We absolutely do. So many of us have pain and struggle stories, but I don't believe God wanted us to suffer. He didn't want us to sacrifice everything that we want for somebody else. And when I think about the opposite of pleasure is pain, there are two different sides of the spectrum. Well, why are we always focusing on pain? What if you focused on pleasure and what brought you that physical enjoyment, that connection, that fulfillment with self, that we can grow just as much through pleasure, if not more so, than we can through pain.
Well, and so in your experience, wouldn't you say that's kind of similar then to how self-love would translate into a tangible presence that other people could then see, feel, hear, experience when
Yeah,
they're in your presence?
absolutely.
So what changes have you seen in the way others respond to leaders who truly embrace their mindset from a space of self-love?
Yeah. Um, it's the easiest way to say it is that there's just an energy. Sometimes you can't describe it,
I,
right? But you feel good in that person's presence. You want to be around them and you become energized. You feel alive and inspired when you are in their energy, whether it is virtual or if it is in person. And you feel it. You don't have to be able to describe and say, well, these are the things that Sally did for me. It's not about what you do for someone. It's about how you make them feel when you show up as the fullest expression of who you are, when you're not betraying yourself. I think this is the key too. Most women I know betray themselves and they will not admit it. They will come up with excuses or they will justify or override why they won't buy the dress or they won't take the art class or whatever it is.
mm-hmm.
And when you're in, when someone has that energy where they're betraying themselves, we feel it. But no one's talking about it. But you know, there's an essence about that person that they're not fully showing up as themselves. But when you step into and honor the things that you truly want, like you just become so magnetic, people want to be around you.
That is absolutely beautiful. I'm gonna do something a little off kilter here, but I'm gonna let my dog in the room because he's scratching at my door.
Oh,
Hold on.
okay. He likes my energy.
He does. He's like, hello, I need to come in here. He's used to being in here, but Anyway, sorry about that, guys. You know, it was distracting me from being connected. So I want to talk about
Yeah.
your approach, right? It's a beautiful approach to body and mind alignment in leadership. So let's talk about or lean into that connection between the self-love and power, particularly when it comes to the body.
Yeah. So the thing is, the way to true self-love, you have to connect with the body. Like if you think about any relationship, let's just say you have a partner. If you have a great relationship with a partner, you communicate with one another. You know each other's love languages. You feel good in their presence. You're affirming of each other. It feels good. If you're in a toxic relationship, it's kind of the opposite. You They might be someone who says negative things to you, is not supportive of you. And we also have a relationship to our body. And most people don't think about that. But I would ask everybody who's listening is what kind of relationship do you have to your body? Do you have one that is like the healthiest, most amazing relationship that you have with a person, like your best friend? Or is your relationship to your body kind of one in which is someone who's not your best friend? And when you treat your body as you would a relationship, it creates a whole new perspective on what you say to your body, how you feel about your body, and how you touch your body. Like I talk a lot about connection and physical touch. And touch can sometimes be I'll call it a bad word, right? Well, because of all of the inappropriate touch or abuse that exists out there. But the truth of the matter is we crave touch. All humans crave physical touch. And if we do not learn or know how to touch ourselves, we're not giving ourselves that physical connection. And touch can be many different things. It can literally be giving yourself a nice hand massage. It can be, rubbing your hands through your hair. I mean, I don't know a woman who doesn't like getting their hair washed in the salon, right? I mean, it's like, seriously, just Calgon, take me away. Just rub my head. And it's that physical touch, that energy, that connection that our body is craving. And if you don't have a partner, then where do you get that touch from? And I think a lot of times women who are in relationships expect their partners to do that for them. Now, they might not be thinking about sex, but they just want the snuggle on the couch, the cuddling, the affection. But if they're not giving that to themselves, then they're seeking outside of themselves for that connection all the time.
Mhm. You are definitely leaning right into one of my favorite things to illuminate for people. And that's that external, right? Like all the external locus of control, the things outside of us that we rely on to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness. I don't know, my list could continue.
Yeah.
It is something that, when I'm working with somebody, on whether it's a process, behavioral, or a chemical addiction, and whether it's food, alcohol, or Amazon shopping, I don't, it doesn't matter. It's
Sure.
that external factor
Mhm.
thing. Like you've given this emotional assignment
Yes.
that you say, like, hey, your job is to make the end of my week feel better, even though in the morning I'm going to feel like dog do. So, like, you talk to me about
Mhm.
how this actual conversation, right, connecting with oneself on that deep level and really leaning into that internal locus of control without betraying, your own values and well-being. How does that speak to your the work you do with leaders on maintaining integrity and balance?
Yeah. So the thing I like to say is that if we are not providing ourselves that connection, that touch, that pleasure, we seek substitute pleasures, right? Which are all the things that you just spoke about. And I think if you look at it from the flip side of, okay, well, what are all of the things that are the substitute pleasures? Well, okay, well, what can you then do to please yourself in any which way possible? And I have seen so much healing and growth come through that physical connection with my body. And this is why I use embodiment practices, whether it is singing. I actually write and sing my own songs. Um, I will use dance and movement as well because it allows you to feel connected with your body. Like when you are dancing and moving, well, and you can't say, oh, I'm like, can you see my arms here? Right. Um, our energy is not just here, right? Like our energy is around us. And what I think is really cool is when a person can be in movement and be connecting with the energy around them and feeling the energy, right? So if someone is not necessarily comfortable with touching themselves initially, you can touch and connect with the energy around you. And when you've got music, I mean, I don't care. I can move without music
I
because
know
I
I'm
hear it in
like,
my,
do, do, do,
right?
do.
But you can move and you can connect with yourself. The other thing too is when you can connect with your own energy, you can shift blockages in your energy field. I really wish I had a picture that I could show people of what our energy field really looks like.
That'd be
And
cool.
I know where the things are blocked, right? I like to tell people that like dancing and movement or clearing your energy is kind of like cleaning your toilet bowl. I know it sounds kind of silly, but you actually have to flush the toilet and sometimes take the little Swiffer to clean it out on a regular basis. And we have to do that to our bodies and our energy as well.
Mhm.
And and I think so many people think that it's woo, it's weird, it's out there, I can't see it, so it doesn't exist. And it's so far from the truth that we need to be able to understand that when we are in the presence of other people's energy, we are exchanging energy, whether we are touching or not. Now, clearly, when you're physically touching, you're exchanging your energy at a different level. But we need to understand when something belongs to us and when it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think what ends up happening so often is if we're in the presence of someone who's got great energy, that's wonderful. But we can then try to latch on and want their energy, right? As opposed to cultivating it from within
Mm.
and creating our own energy. And like our sexual energy is our creative energy, our life force
Hold on. I don't know if you can hear me. It's coming back. It's okay.
Okay,
I'll,
that's
hey,
okay.
everybody, if I didn't crop that out, which I probably did, if you're noticing a hiccup, it's just because we're having high winds and I live in the country and, so internet.
It's
So,
all good.
okay. So I hate that it cut you off there. If you know where it, gave you that hiccup and you want to finish that thought, please feel free.
I think where I was going is that like most women live from the waist up.
Mm,
It's all about the giving, and we ignore the lower half of our bodies. And this is where our receiving muscles come into play. I was mentioning about our sexual life force creative energy is in the lower chakras of our body. That what I have seen, especially in some of the dance movements that I will encourage women to do, is that everything is stored. Like the trauma is all stored in their pelvic area and in their hips.
yep.
And I have done like a 3-minute practice with people where it's more of like a pelvic tilt. And I've had women cry because they're releasing things that are being held inside their bodies. And what's really sad is, and I remember doing this activity at a meeting, and there were probably like 25 women there. And some of the older women did the activity, but didn't have the same experience as the woman who was crying. But it's because we have this disconnection with our body. And it takes time to allow yourself to open up to that part of who you are because we have layer upon layer upon layer of protection in the body, especially in that area. But when you start to, I'll say, chip away at that, and if you start with dancing and doing something that is just fun and playful and not sexual, if people are afraid of that, terminology, that's fine. It's getting yourself to move your body and feel. I had women tell me, I was at an event last weekend, and they're like, oh my gosh, we just want to flow. I wore one of my ballroom gowns to an event, and every woman there looked at me and was like, I want to be in a dress like that because it was flowy, it was feminine, it was fun. And they actually have inspired me to host a retreat day where I want to bring in my dressmaker and have these beautiful, amazing ballroom gowns where people can then try them on and know what it feels like. Like, just like when I tried on my first dress that I bought, to try on this amazing, beautiful gown that makes you feel feminine, to twirl around and to be in that energy of what it really means to be a woman. Like, how powerful is that to not be afraid of our femininity, to really embrace those parts that make us a woman as opposed to suppressing them.
Absolutely. That's that would be, well, one, that would be really fun to go do, right? Like,
I'll invite you. I'll let you know when I pick the date. It's in
yeah,
process.
I'm like, oh, how fun just to go try on dresses, right? And like, oh, I like the way this one feels. Because you never know. Like if you go out and you buy one and you spend that kind of money, and then you're like the half hour into your dance, you're like, it's too heavy, right? Anyway, I don't want to go down some rabbit hole because I will. I love where we're going, and I really want to make sure that that, we lean into your reflection worksheet that's here below so that we can, truly hand everybody some tangible, practical tactics that they can start with right now that are going to help them remove some of these common barriers that are preventing them from stepping into their true leadership, whatever that looks like for them. Because I know some of our guests here are, CEOs of their home. They're like the mom of the tribe and the spouse, and and that's great. I did that for a lot of years, and it is a big job. So I don't want anybody to feel discounted. But so the preventing those leaders from stepping into their true presence. Let's what are those actionable steps that we can give them right here, right now, in this moment?
Yeah. I what I will say is two in particular. One, and they both revolve around music. The first is listening to songs that are inspirational and have what I would call an affirmation component to them. So rather than just standing in front of the mirror and saying, I am beautiful, I am gorgeous, I am worthy, I am enough, it is finding a song that you can sing to, whether you're in the shower, like you don't have to be a singer, right? Or you can move to, that allows you to claim whatever that thing is that you want. And I'm actually in the process of writing some new songs to be in alignment with that. So that would be like the first thing, is like finding like an I am worthy song.
I'm
And
trying to remember the name of the one I heard the other day, and I'm like, dude, that is so my theme song right now.
yeah, actually, I have a playlist that I created that has about 6 different I am worthy songs on it. What I should really do is count the number of times it says I'm worthy. Because I think what happens is we listen to songs that are fun, but it's the constant spaced repetition that helps with that. And I actually even experienced that this summer with my playlist. So I'll have to share what that is. So that's the first thing that we can do. The second is moving the body. And one of the things that I will share more about is I teach a modality called chakra dance. You could do chakra dance, you could do any kind of dance, but it is allowing yourself to connect with your body and move. And you can move to songs with words, you can move to songs without words. I actually have some recordings of some of the chakra dance things that I have done to where you can hear my voice on top of the music while you are moving. And I like to say it's meditation on steroids. Because so many people will say, I can't be still and meditate. Like my brain goes in all different directions. And what I have found with what I'll call this moving meditation is you're using multiple senses. You are using your eyes from a visualization perspective, even though your eyes are closed. You are using your ears because you're hearing the music. You are using your body because you're physically moving, or you're touching your energy. You also could put on some oils and have scents, right, in the background. And for women, it is extremely important for us to connect with all of our senses. This is why we want these romantic evenings with our partner, the candles, the music, the flowers, because it engages our entire body. And the more we can do that and understand how we can connect with all of our senses, that is going to help you to show up more for you and your connection No matter if you are in the bedroom, in the boardroom, in the coffee shop, no matter where you
Amen. I get up on the weekends and I turn on the music and it is on all weekend long. And I try to, as much as I can during the week, have something on. But if I need to be focused and not listening to, because I am drawn to music, and it can be classical music with no words because I played classical piano for 11 and a half years. So, I know how to, visualize the story of the music that in a way that suits me. And it is, I can't tell you guys, like she's not blowing smoke here. Like this is
are.
real stuff. Even if
Yeah.
you're not, you don't really consider yourself somebody that, is connected with music. I can't dance. You don't have to. I mean, I hear all the guys going, well,
Yeah.
oh, this is for women and da da da. It's not, right? Like
No.
you guys carry all of your garbage here also, right? Like and below. But we don't have to know how to dance. It's about learning how to express
Yes.
ourselves and our bodies. And and we all have our different, ways of this, but this is how I removed autoimmune disease from my life. And that was learning how to hear what my body was telling me, learning how
Mhm.
to experience it in a way that allowed me to do what it needed me to do. And
Yeah.
and and that means we have to have a desire. We have to have that want. And so we have to touch ourselves. We have to love on ourselves. And I swear all the time, I tell people like, oh my God, and people think I'm a nut, but I will show up at Pilates and I'm like, crank up the music, ladies, let's have some fun because it's like 12
Mhm.
afternoon. Like we need a midday break. And I'm not even the teacher or the instructor or anything, like I'm just there and I'm like, like, just for that
Yeah.
interaction, right? Like,
Sure.
oh, go connect, so this is really, 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 it's life-changing stuff. If you can allow yourself to lean into it.
Mhm.
I know a lot of you are like, I'm not going to be dancing for anybody else, because you're going to feel silly or, somebody's looking at me again. I'm going to say, get out of that external locus of control.
Yeah.
Quit Karen, right? So anything, gosh, thank you. Everybody lean in, get the reflection worksheet. Make sure you book time with me to get the freebie because her freebie is off the charts. Wonderful. You need it, want it in your life. Jen, what do you have? Is there one last thing that you want to say before we have to skedaddle?
Yeah. What I would say is that something different happens when the body experiences pleasure over anything else.
Yeah.
And for those that are thinking, is she crazy? What if pleasure could be the thing that shifted anything in your life, whether it's a relationship, a sickness, something else you want to call in? It almost feels like it's like the last resort. But what if you leaned into this and you were able to heal something you haven't been able to heal for years, or you called in that amazing relationship? Just be amazed at what could happen.
I know I'm gonna start paying a little bit more attention because I know I do that, right? Like I'm all about pleasure. And my husband trips out because he'll hear me and you're talking to somebody, and I'm really, leaning in and helping him, and it's a hard, heavy time. And then I get up from my desk, I walk out the door, and I start singing and dancing a song, or well, okay. Anyway, you guys got that. But it's because, it's that important to me, right? Like I can give that energy in that time and space, but I got to know how to come right out of it for
Yes.
me. I have to give myself pleasure. Otherwise, right? Like I'm held down here. It's why I have, the work that I do with practitioners, because
Yeah.
we get sucked into that energy. And so I love this. I love this. I can't wait to download my own copy.
Okay, I have one last thing.
Do
No,
it.
so many people think there's a difference between joy and pleasure.
Mm.
Because so many people think they want joy, which is this spiritual, um, inside feeling. But the opposite of pleasure is pain, physical pain. That's different than sorrow and joy. And most of us do not do something until something is physically painful. What if we didn't have to experience as much physical pain as we have in the past? And you could actually live in pleasure and enjoyment and abundance and fulfillment.
Let's do it. Let's do it, people. All right. Thank you so much. Oh, Augie's barking. Thank you so much for coming. I totally value and appreciate you. And I know everybody else has. Look
Yeah.
forward to jumping into the chat in the community. Anybody wants to continue this conversation, that's the place to go. I'm sure Jen will pop in when she has the opportunity. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been an honor and a privilege.